Welcome everyone to another piece of the puzzle, the sixth piece. Here's where Bruno and I, two business-minded engineers who like to develop things, business, products, services. We always explore things that are way too complex to deal with in 10 minutes. But hey, even we had 2 hours, and especially that topic, if we had 2 hours and somebody were to write a book on this, you would never figure out the whole story. So today's session is all about answering how to recognize bad business advice. And these things that we will discover together with Bruno are things that we keep in mind when we talk about the things we talk about here. Try to not mislead people into giving you miracle cures to anything. That's one of the things. We can start with this, Bruno. What do you think? Miracle cures.
Well, first I hit 10-minute record, not record. I keep saying record. I need to get like a big iron stopwatch, you know.
I should put one behind me.
Yeah, just drill it into the wall. Okay. Well, bad business advice, and I like that you called it out. That people need to critically think even when listening to us. And I do hope we're transparent enough that we are sharing personal experience that we're hopeful is helpful to others, but not necessarily taking a role of a business advisor or something. Yeah. And I myself am personally living from providing expertise and advice. And to me, what's really important, what I wrestled a lot before accepting what do I do professionally is recognition that what I do and other good advisors do is it comes from personal experience and it is given with accountability. So a business advisor has no skin in the game. That the person advising you has no accountability. I don't want to say can be automatically disregarded, but shouldn't have the same weight as someone who is invested in your success for whatever reason, be that you're paying them, be that they're an investor, be that they're your boss, be that they're some sort of a formal advisor. That to me is very, very important. And another thing is, I don't know, is it a social discourse or something, but the word expert suddenly or slowly rather turned into like something filthy. How dare you call yourself an expert? Like what is this? To me it's total nonsense. Like why should I be ashamed? Why should I hire someone who is ashamed to admit that they're an expert? An expert doesn't mean that you're the ultimate source of truth. An expert is a person who has invested in their skill, who keeps investing in their skill, and they're at the top of the game in their skill. That top can be shared by many. So expertise is necessary for giving valuable advice.
I think it has to do with socio-political landscape, in which anybody can claim to be anything. It used to be a saying in Greece that in Greece you can be anything you want. Anything you declare you can be. President, whatever, anything. It seems to be spreading globally. So again, Greeks first wants to do many things, as always. But jokes aside, I think the problem is that everybody can claim to be anything, and therefore the label of expert gets diluted to mean any idiot who will say anything to make a quick buck and then disappear with your money. And expertise, and also to some degree, I think experts, and I've seen some experts, they get so high up on the high horse that they do damage to the expert label because they start to sniff their own farts, to put it nicely. And because they're expert in something, they start to expound on other things as if they're expert on anything. And that turns people off, especially when they get proven wrong, and then they get defensive. They don't take feedback. And I had, these are my favorite types of people to drive by comment on LinkedIn whenever I feel bored, because they never disappoint. They give experts a bad name. That's a problem with expertise. And very often
there's a German expression like Fachidiot.
Yeah, so it's kind of
yeah. So it's extremely narrow. And there's nothing wrong in narrow specialization, but they're narrowly specialized and ignorant of everything else. But they forget they're ignorant and start thinking that just because I'm narrowly specialized in one area, I can advise on all the other areas as well.
There's also the element that experts tend to, so why is somebody an expert? Because that person has invested a lot in the past. And very often identities get formed around what people have worked on or what they have consulted on. And it's very difficult for someone to step out of this identity, to see themselves as, for example, one of my favorite topics to riff on is the lean expert or the lean sensei or the Six Sigma, whatever. Just because they have had, I don't know how many years of exposure to good or worse ideas, they get too attached to this, and then their whole persona becomes, oh, everything is lean, everything is agile, everything is about continuous improvement. Oh, I worship all kinds of figures. You know, the guy from Toyota, I don't remember now names, all the names that people use to self-authorize. That also turns people off. They might have good ideas, but they push people away. And the bad business advice in that case comes from decontextualizing. There was a brilliant post that I mentioned earlier today that shows the progress of actual practice towards just basically selling prepackaged solutions as prescriptions of what to do that doesn't end up working. That is, for me, the summary of bad business advice: taking things out of context, making fairy tales about how things should be, regardless of how things are or could be, and then insisting that this is how it should be done because others did it this way, because that's just what you're not doing. Lean, agile, whatever. What are you? Some peasant that is not focusing on the next big. You're not doing AI. Your business has nothing to do with AI. You'll be disrupted. You will be disrupted. Oh, this is bad business advice. It's one-sided. It's biased. It is tone deaf. What else can we say?
Well, I'm sure we can say find other ugly words, but yes, I agree with you that if you have an advisor, again, be it external, internal, etc., the biggest value or how you can notice red flags is exactly what you said. It very generic advice in form of aphorisms. You know, somebody who can parrot a good practice. Right? Maybe it's outdated, maybe it is current best practice, but it is a red flag if the person who is giving you advice or whose advice you sought is not able to adjust and match that based on their experience to your situation, because this is where expertise starts to shine. So, for example, like, I take pride in my innovation and strategy work. But another thing is martial arts. I've been practicing martial arts since I've been age 6. I do not have a problem calling myself a martial arts expert, but I would never make a claim that, for example, if I pick a fight with 100 people, I'm going to win 100 times. It's just impossible.
But you could, however, that's kind of what happens, given that you have an exposure to martial arts. You could basically say, oh, I'm a martial arts expert, a sensei, therefore I deeply understand the Japanese people and culture, and therefore I deeply understand the Toyota production system, which is kind of the BS that I see happening with this kind of idolization of something vague and foreign and oriental to spout exactly the nonsense that many people say, as if it's almost like religious fervor. That's another indicator, as is the fact that this kind of decontextualizing things and treating advice or ideas as being always the right thing to do, the aphorisms you call them, is very evident in people who don't. I mean, you can recognize it by seeing how they don't think in systems. They never think in trade-offs. They never think in, okay, yes, you make that choice, do whatever it is that other people are doing. Under which conditions? What are you paying to do that? What are you not doing when you do that? Just say, do lean, do DevOps, do agile, do test-driven development. Just do this, do that, do that. Okay, but everything you do, there are things you don't do, or you don't do as well, or you don't do at all. Those things might also have value. This lack of systems thinking evident in peddlers of bad business advice. I think that's the most obvious one, but it's also the most high-level one. It's difficult to recognize it if you don't know what else is there.
What I would also say is advice that is spineless. So something that immediately bucks under pressure. And this might be my bias because of the pedagogy of martial arts and everything. Good advice does challenge you to an extent. Because if you're just looking for someone to confirm you to do what you plan to do, you're not really asking for advice, you're asking for confirmation, which isn't the same as advice. Advice will usually be slightly divergent from what you thought you should be doing. That's why you're asking for help. That's why you're asking for another opinion to figure out what to do next differently. And if you push back and it immediately, the advice or the advisor immediately falls apart like house of cards, that to me is also another red flag. That don't be fooled by out of time. Don't be fooled by bravado. Don't be fooled by confident repetition of vague words. You know, don't be afraid to push back on your advisor, advice giver, whatever, to ask, okay, but what do you actually mean by that? How would that actually look like? What does this mean in practical terms? Especially if you have a paying relationship, you know, don't satisfy yourself with just these vague aphorisms. Ask, like, okay, help me work this out in practical terms. Like, let's figure out specific actions. Let's figure out specifically what to do. And if they cannot do that, then what is that but bad advice?
It is, it might be I don't know if it was always like that or it's a sign of the times that there's a general lack of conflict capability, and conflict is not by itself bad. Like if we're developing a software as a service now for property management, which will launch very soon. And one of the things that I'm very happy about is that I have a team of people across the other side of the wall, because it's a development partner, and I can feel free to disagree with some things. They can feel free to push back on some of my ideas and vice versa, because it's not about taking things personally. I don't have all the answers. They don't have all the answers. But if I were to have a development partner who would not have such a good spine like people I work with or they work for us, I would have made some decisions that would have been suboptimal. So if you hire someone contractually or as an advisor, whatever, to get access to brains, expertise, knowledge, different viewpoints that come from a genuine place, then what are you doing? Basically forcing them to tell you what you want to hear, or not allowing them to even express their differing viewpoints. I mean, the whole point is you are more likely to win, they're more likely to win, you together are more likely to win, the outcome will be better. But that's also what brings us to the crux of the matter. I think is the problem is the experts, the paid experts, the paid typical classical spineless consultant. It's a supplicant. That's almost a stereotype. Or the big companies that get hired to rationalize or provide authority to someone who hires them. Companies whose names start with M and end in Y, or B and N, right? Those kind of companies. Very often, I'm not saying always, the brand is, hey, they told us. They told us. I have no other choice. So it's legitimization of things that you already know. And that's not, in my view, it's not business advice. That it's almost like PR. It's a totally different function that they serve. And in the end, it's difficult to find people nowadays with whom you will fruitfully disagree, not turn it personal, even if you agree on some things and some things disagree forever. It's fine. It's fine. There's no value judgment in this. You don't have all the answers. They don't have all the answers. But through the conflict, the productive conflict, hopefully you will get some of their brain. They will get some of your brain. And this is something that worries me always. Whenever I hear things which have zero potential for conflict, I get not annoyed, not afraid. I start to get this cringe feeling that we're not likely to get anything done here. Everybody's too afraid to speak up. So very likely the business advice will be something which is, when everybody looks, is everybody going to accept this? I hope they accept this. And then it ends up being what you say, it's a spineless, like some BS aphorism. People go, oh, very wise. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Sounds good, doesn't work.
It sounds great. Sounds great.
Yeah.
It will be great in press releases about how our company does this. But
what I wrote down for
Mhm.
for one of our next puzzles is definitely something on the conflict, productive
yeah.
and generative conflict. I think that's something that I've personally been exploring lately, and I see you
Mhm.
too. So we'll bring that to one of the future puzzles, and better that we start wrapping this one up. Otherwise, it's gonna be 20-minute puzzle.
You know how it is always. That's a challenge of the 10 minutes. It's always a challenge.
Yeah, it'll come with practice.
And it will never come, Bruno. It's never gonna. Those are topics that, as we discussed in the interlude between that and the prayer one. And yes, okay, we're going over time. We might cut it or not. The biggest pieces of the puzzle are not the methods, are not the things that come from knowledge of frameworks or whatever. It's always a human element. Always a human element. And once you start diving into human element, conflict orientations, different cultural perceptions, yeah, the puzzle becomes millennia long. No matter how many people discuss, we'll never find the one answer. So that's why it's so valuable to discuss some things and say, okay, at least we know a few ideas about some aspects, because we'll never know about everything else. So many other.
Absolutely. And for those of you again listening, if you heard any question or anything, doesn't have to be question, just something like, what the hell are these two guys talking about? Just write to us, and we are happy to delve deeper into your puzzles as well. I mean, this is for all of us to get a little bit better, to explore ideas together, and hopefully make a world a little bit.
And comment below. Now I know what it will look like on LinkedIn. So comment below. Smash that like button.
Oh.
Fantastic. See you.